Hi there. So, will South Africa arrest Putin, the president of Russia, if he physically arrives in South Africa to attend the BRICS summit in August this year? Will they arrest him based on an arrest warrant issued by NATO, EU, and Western-controlled court of the ICC, or will they not? In this video, we are going to look at who is telling the truth and the facts behind the rumors. By now, you know the case that we are talking about. There's this arrest warrant that was issued by the Hague-based court called the ICC against Putin. So they want to arrest Putin because they accuse him of committing some crimes in Ukraine. Now, Russia is not a state party to the Rome Statute that established the ICC, and neither is Ukraine. So legally, the court doesn't even have the jurisdiction to investigate any cases, any crime in Ukraine or in Russia, or to even investigate Ukrainians or Russians. So this is just a political kind of push from the West to intimidate the Russian president. Now, the same thing happened back in 2015. The then president of Sudan, Omar al-Bashir, went to South Africa, and there was an existing arrest warrant for him. But when he got to South Africa, he was not arrested. But again, South Africa is a state party to the Rome Statute. In other words, the ICC court has jurisdiction in South Africa. But that time, South Africa refused to effect the arrest warrant. And the only punishment, according to analysts in South Africa, was embarrassment, because nothing was done, because the court doesn't have the powers to force any country that refuses to abide to the arrest warrant. For example, Israel is a state party to the Rome Statute, or the Palestinian territory is a state party to the Rome Statute. And there are crimes that are committed by Israel in Palestine. And the ICC has always investigated these crimes, and they have never issued arrest warrants towards anyone in the Israeli government. They have never issued arrest warrants to Benjamin Netanyahu, for example. But here we are. The same court is issuing arrest warrants to countries that are not even state party to the Rome Statute on behalf of other countries that are not state party to the Rome Statute. Back to our story today. Will South Africa arrest the president of Russia, Putin, when they didn't do the same to the president of Sudan, Omar al-Bashir? Will they arrest or will they not? That is the question. Let me quickly take you to the source of the rumors. So if you go to the Google search and you type South Africa asked Putin not to attend the BRICS summit, you'll find a lot of sources and quotes, newspapers talking about it. And the first one that comes on top there on the Google search is the Sunday Times, is the Moscow Times, right? And it calls itself the independent news from Russia. Now, to most people who are not keen, they might think this newspaper is from Russia, but it's not. This is a newspaper published in 3 locations outside Russia, from the United Kingdom, from Poland, and from Estonia. And the people who work there, they call themselves the Russian opposition, or people basically who left Russia because they were not happy with how things are in Russia. In other words, dissidents of the Russian government. And they definitely are not the right source to trust when you are talking about Russia. So they have this story. South Africa warns Putin could face arrest while attending BRICS summit. And they are the ones who come on top of the search for that news item, meaning most likely it originated with them to begin with. And in the article, they cite some unknown sources from the South African government. And the reason I'm saying this, because I talked to a friend of mine who works in the South African government, who belongs to the ruling party, the ANC, and he laughed and said that, where am I getting that? And I told him, I've read it on the internet. And he said, don't worry, no one is arresting Putin. And now that's why I started researching and found that the source of that, or the rumors, was not even from South Africa. Look, the other newspaper, It is Ukrainska Pravda 23. This best Pravda means truth. Ukrainska, you guessed it, it means Ukrainian. So truth in Ukraine, that's what the newspaper is called. They have the same story. And you can see, and on the left, they have propaganda and anti-Russian news. So you understand. The other source is the New York Post, number 3 on the Google search. And New York Post is currently the mouthpiece of the Biden administration. And I can go on, but the source of this news is not a source you can trust. And they are citing some unknown sources from within the South African government. And that's where we have the problem, because they are lying. These are rumors manufactured in either Ukraine or some Western country. From where I stand, there's no one who's going to arrest Putin, and particularly South Africa. They're not going to arrest Putin because they never arrested the Sudanese president, Omar al-Bashir. So why would they arrest Putin? And remember, Putin is going to South Africa in August because of the BRICS summit. And if you don't know what BRICS is, this is like the version of G7, because G7 we have Western countries plus Japan and Korea. Now the BRICS is the opposite. And what the BRICS countries want to do is to remove having to use the third-party currencies like the dollar or the euro to settle transactions between member countries. For example, if South Africa was paying for goods they bought in India, they can either use the South African rand or the Indian rupee, which is the case that is happening between China and Russia. They're using the Chinese ruble or the Chinese yuan. 19 countries have applied to join or to be admitted into the BRICS. And this is one of the agenda in this coming summit. So it is important that presidents of founding countries be present. That is Brazil, Russia, South Africa, India, and China, because those are the founding countries. And countries that are likely to be admitted into the BRICS are Saudi Arabia and Iran. And the reason why they are joining the BRICS, and the reason behind the BRICS, is because countries have soon realized that you can have your foreign currency frozen. Because I think the United States and the EU have a way of freezing funds in individual countries' central bank, because I think they use serial numbers, and once those serial numbers are scrapped, those funds are useless. The other thing is the SWIFT system, because it is like a system that links different banks to do transaction between one another. You can easily be kicked out of that system. And the BRICS wants to start or to have their own version of the SWIFT system to avoid those kind of scenario. So it's important that Putin attends this summit to admit new members. And to think of it, how are they planning to arrest him? Because have you ever seen Putin's motorcade? This guy is guarded by about between 30 to 50 bodyguards. And since they are at war with Ukraine, this number could maybe have gone up since, right? So were they planning to walk up to Putin and put handcuffs on him, or use a tractor to block his airplane at the airport? I mean, some things are not even doable. So this is a way of the West to try to intimidate Russia, to try to undermine the BRICS. Because the West definitely is not happy that the global South is forming their own version of the G7.